guys, thanks for joining me back from Project Cummins. What I'm going to be showing you how to do today is how to remove a set of injectors off a common rail Cummins diesel. And of course we're going to be using my 2003 Dodge Cummins. And as always, you want to make sure you have your safety equipment, which eyeglass, some hand protection, and you want to make sure you take your time, pay attention, watch the whole video first before you try to attempt it. And okay, so the first thing you need to do is to remove the battery terminals off both batteries on the engine. And this would really be the first step you do on just about any project. Next, what you want to do is you want to remove this 10mm bolt that holds down the engine oil dipstick and get it out of the way. Don't forget to put your bolt back so you don't lose it. And then go ahead and loosen up your boost, your spring-loaded boost tube clamp here, so that you can move it up over your intake horn. And then you want to go ahead and remove these 13mm bolts that hold down the intake horn and remove it. Once you have this off, you can just kind of set it aside here. Okay. Next, what you want to do is remove your grid heater, or your grid heater delete, whatever it is you have. You want to make sure that nothing falls into the intake either. So go ahead and remove this. You can set it aside or you can unbolt the whole thing. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to set it aside. Once the grid heater is out of the way safely, you want to take the nuts that were holding on the intake horn, and you want to turn one upside down and one straight up so that the flat end pieces are meeting each other, and tighten the top one onto the bottom one, and that way that you can take out these threaded studs. Okay, so now that your studs are all out, you want to go ahead and make sure that you take a moment to get some rags and fill in the hole here on the intake and fill in the hole on the boost tube. This will prevent any debris from falling down in there. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is to remove 3 clips. One's here, one's right here, and one's hidden right back down in there. You see that? This one right here on this cord. Go ahead and remove those and get those out of the way. And then while you're at it, go ahead and take off this plastic cover and this bolt where it holds down this wiring. Just push all the wires out of the way, and the bolts that are holding the plastic cover is off. Go ahead and take this off. Get the plastic cover out of the way. And just for safekeeping, we're going to put these bolts that held the plastic cover back in to the valve cover. Okay, so next we are going to pull out these breather hoses. Like that. And then we are going to remove the bolts here, here, and right back there that hold down the valve cover case. Okay, so when taking out the bolts on your valve cover, don't forget that these bolts have wee little O-rings on them. And if you remember from previous episode, mine are fine because I replaced them. So I'm going to go ahead and keep them in the valve cover. Just give this thing a little bit of a yank up. Bring it on out. Be careful not to knock any dirt into the engine as you take this out as well. Okay, so we went and got a trash bag and folded it up over here so that none of the dirt up here will fall down into the engine while we have the valve cover gasket off. And we are going to start to take off the fuel lines from the common rail. And this is really your choice of which one to do. I just go ahead and take off the fuel lines themselves and kind of get them cleaned up while they're off. Some people recommend that you just remove them from the engine and then remove the whole common rail assembly. It's really up to you. There is less possible damage that you can do by removing the whole assembly, but I mean, if you're going to take your time and do it right, taking off the individual fuel lines should be just fine. So we're going to go ahead and loosen these 6 nuts on the engine, and then we're going to loosen them on the common rail, and then we're going to take them out. Okay, so as you see, we have 5 out of the 6 fuel lines off. But to get to the 6th one, see if I can get a good view for you guys. To get to the 6th one, there's that plate back there with 2 bolts we're going to have to take off so we can access the last fuel line. So go ahead and take off those 2 bolts, take out that plate, and you can get to the last one. Okay, so I got the back plate out with the 2 nuts on, the 2 bolts on it, and I got the back fuel line off, but it came at a very costly price, and I'll show you why. Here's the back nut that was connected to the connecting tube for the injector for the fuel, and the nut had completely seized up to this connecting tube, and well, it just was not coming off. So needless to say, I now have a broken number 6 fuel line, which it's really shitty that it happened, but it is out, and I got another one on the way now. But at all costs, you need to try and avoid this. This fuel line right here for the number 6 cylinder, if you break it, you might luck out and find one on eBay used for maybe $30, $40. If not, and you have to resort to the dealership, this line right here will cost you $110. I shit you not, this will cost you $110. You could try to rig one up yourself, but I don't recommend it. And the main reason is that these were designed to fit together perfectly, and if you try to rig one up and it doesn't work, you could have a extremely high pressure and possibly deadly accident. So out, but at a cost. And I might still be able to save this tube and nut, and there's a few things that I'm going to try to safely remove this, but there's also a chance that that this will also be destroyed in the process. So, hey, it's out. Okay, so I got the plate with the 2 nuts on it out, and I got the last fuel line off of the common rail to the number 6 cylinder. So now, what you want to do after you got all your fuel lines out, you want to take a 24mm socket, and you want to come up to these retaining nuts and take them off. I've already pre-cracked this one, that's why it's so easy to get off. There you go. You want to loosen these up and take all 6 of these out. Okay, so after you have your retaining nuts out, you want to go ahead and pull out your feed tubes. Now there's a couple ways that you can do this. One, you can just grab onto the feed tube and pull like hell. Hope it comes out just fine. You can try and loosely tighten on the fuel line nut that was on it before and pry it out with a screwdriver. Or they actually make a tool to do this, and I actually have a couple of them. These you just screw on and tug it out. This one has a little groove that when you screw it on, that you can put a screwdriver in there and then pry it out. But honestly, I like using this one because I get a better grip on it. And as you'll see, you just give it a quick tighten down, and then they pop right out. So not really hard. And when you go to put these back in, these little balls here line up with a groove that's inside the block that you can put in and then line up, and then they pop right back in. And it's good to do this with the tool so that you don't mess up the threads any. I've seen a couple that have been messed up from people trying to pry it out, and I've seen one that someone tried to use vice grips, and I don't know why they couldn't get out. I mean, these don't really stick very hard, but he had vice grips on it and he messed all the threads up. You want to try not to do that, but if these are messed up, or if they are busted up at the end down here where they meet with the injector, you could probably find these brand new for about 15 bucks a piece. So try not to mess them up, but if you do, they're not that expensive. Okay, Okay, so now it's time to remove the exhaust rocker arms, because the exhaust rocker arm is directly over one of the nuts that hold down the injector. So I've already gone ahead and cracked this one loose. So just go ahead and remove the top bolt on it. And that rocker arm comes right out. And also, you're going to want to remove the bridge as well, so that it doesn't get knocked around or damaged or misplaced. Okay, now that we have those exhaust rocker arms off, next thing we want to do is come over to the top of the injector and remove the nut fasteners from the top of the injector. The nuts and the wires are one piece, so you don't have to worry about refastening them to the injector as you're taking them out to save them, because they're one piece. So make sure that you don't accidentally tighten instead of loosen, because, well, you can damage your injector doing that. And there you go. Now just go ahead and take off the rest of the 11 that are on here, 2 for each injector. Okay, now that we have the nuts off of the studs here, we're going to go down to this nut and this nut and loosen them. And those nuts are the exact same size as the one, these bolts down here are the same size as the nuts that were on the stud. So you can go ahead and take them out with the same socket. And after you do that, you want to go ahead and take out the rest of the 11. Okay, now that you have the hold down bolts out, it's time to remove the injector. And to do this, I have a tool that we're going to set up. And you don't absolutely have to have this tool. This tool is actually a little bit expensive. I've seen what was it? I think it was a modified tool from Harvard Freight they used as a puller, and hey, it works really well. So you can do that, but I have the actual tool, so that's what I'm going to use. But with my tool, I do have one piece missing, which I will show you here in a minute. Get a little top view of it. It's just a little seesaw that you use to pull up. Okay. And here's the bottom pieces. Now with these bottom pieces, there was a ring that went around them that held them onto the injector as you pulled up. But, well, I kind of lost it the last time I did this, so we're not going to be able to use that. But it's still basically the same. A little bit of juggling to do this, but you can still get it done. Okay, now that we have this set, there's a little groove under the injector that I'll show you as soon as we yank it out that I'm connecting to. And all I'm going to do is hold this with one hand, and the other hand I'm going to push down on the back side of the sleever, just like this. And it's out. They pop out rather easy. Some may need a little bit of a tug, but overall they're pretty easy. And where I had that tool at was in this groove right here. As you can see, this tool fits. Whoops! This tool fits perfectly right in that groove. And do that to the rest of the 6, and your injectors are out. This is where your feed tube goes into the engine, so when you reinstall your new ones, or after you had these tested, or whatever you're removing them for, you want to make sure that this hole goes towards the driver's side of the engine so that you can put the feed tube back in. Also, when you pull out these injectors, make sure that you see this copper crush washer here and that it hasn't stayed in the engine. You want to make sure this comes out with it, and no matter what reason you're taking out your injectors for testing, cleaning, replacing, always replace with a new copper washer. Never reuse it. I just want to say, as a side note, organization is the key to getting this job done correctly and being able to put this back together correctly. As you can see, I keep everything as organized as I possibly can. Bag and bolts, you can't really see it, but they're actually numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when you do this, keep everything as organized as you possibly can, and it'll go as smooth as can be. That's how you remove injectors on a 2003 Dodge Cummins common rail. And basically, in a nutshell, that's it. It takes a little time, it's a little bit tedious, but it can be done. I mean, just take your time. Be organized, and when you get frustrated, walk away. You will. It'll happen sometimes. Like, I busted the number 6 fuel line, and I'm not gonna lie, very frustrated. But just walk away. It's okay. Walk away. It'll be alright, man. It's just money. You don't need it. Also, I'd like to note that if you have a little bit newer truck, like 2005, 2006, you'll notice that some things are slightly different than the 2003, but this basically covers it. Minor differences, like the wiring harness. It's different. There's actually a wiring harness to take off. Mine doesn't. But you'll notice maybe a few little other things, but that's really it. So I hope this helped you out. See you guys next time.